Throughout history, social engineers have refined techniques designed to control large populations.
About 100 years ago, this big organization with many branches, they wanted to rule the world basically using Britain as a nucleus of a system, an embryo, which also was going to be joined with the US under the Anglo-American establishment, wrote about the kind of culture and the changes of culture over a 100-year period that they would actually design, implement and bring in. And H.G. Wells talked about it too. He talked about arenas. He says arenas could be put up across the world for sports, for instance. Now at that time, sports was something that children, school children were into. Adults became adults and got onto adult things. So it was unimaginable at the time that people could actually believe that there was even a need for adult sports and entertainment, never mind having arenas built across the world. But he said we can do this and foist basically a sports culture for the males. Using a tribal system, we're all tribal to an extent. That's why we even bother to vote for a tribal leader. This is well understood. That's why we're supplied with these leaders. And because the average man was to become more disengaged from his own destiny as the expert class arose, it was decided that the males would get their outlet basically, gradually becoming helpless as males through sports. Therefore they'd have a tribal team they could identify with, they could cheer them on as though they were winning. In their own personal lives, they were getting nowhere. They were getting disenfranchised in a sense as experts took over decision-making for them in all kinds of fields. So this was psychology at use, planned before they even implemented the sports. When radio came along, of course, they used that to the maximum. Sports for the men, soaps basically for the women. And then in came television, as I say, with its alpha state, its hypnotic state. And sure enough, around the 1960s, really, 50s and 60s, it took off. It really, really took off. And men became glued on Saturday nights to the sports shows. A culture industry, which is called by its own the culture industry. The Soviet Union had a department called the culture industry. Their actors and directors were called the cultural leaders, because they would, like a computer, people are like computers, all you have to do is keep giving them new updates every so often, and you can change an entire country or a nation or a block of nations who are all getting the same upgrades at the same time along certain paths. Today we call it political correctness. Most people want to belong to their peer group. They want to be the same as everyone else when it comes to opinions. In fact, they judge their own personal sanity by bouncing ideas off their neighbors and friends who will answer back and agree on these same topics in kind. It doesn't matter if the topics or what you're given are facts or utter nonsense, as long as everyone agrees at the same time. You'll say, well, I'm sane, and your friends will all agree because they've had the same information given to them.
But they've been programmed, and I'm sad because I know that it's hard for people like that to take an interest, a serious interest in world affairs, to take a serious interest in what their elected officials are doing. And they're not going to be really inclined to study or discover the deception that's being used against them. And so I'm sad because I see all of that in a flash in my mind as being an indication of how easy it is for the masses to be manipulated.
The scientific dictatorship understands what makes human beings tick. They understand our psychology. They've studied it, and they're using it against us. But the minute the public awakens to the fact that there is an agenda to manipulate them, and the second the public realizes that they are being conditioned and controlled, the establishment begins to lose that edge they've got over people. So all I ask viewers to do is to think for themselves and to study public relations, to study advertising, to study propaganda, and to realize how much of it is out there in their daily lives. and then make the decision for yourself. I just want people to think on their own and to not have their decisions and their thoughts and their ideas pre-packaged and basically downloaded into them.
If it's on TV and a famous face says something, then it must be true. He doesn't have to show you facts or anything else. You've been brought up with these faces. That's why they keep these guys on television into their 70s and 80s. You've grown up with this father figure who's on television every night at 6 o'clock, in your house, in your room, staring right at you, and he's a father figure. Would he tell you a lie? So you naturally never suspect him. And this same man will lead you through new topics. He'll introduce experts on the topics. They'll have a little summary at the end of every talk, and you are now left with the conclusion that's presented to you. You don't arrive at it, it's given to you, and it's good enough for you.
But essentially, quantum insertion and things that are like quantum insertion, they're triggered as part of the turmoil and turbine system and the Q-fire system, and they're all put together so that they can automate attacking people based on the plain text traffic that transits the internet, or based on the source or destination IP addresses. This is a second top secret document. This is an actual NSA lolcat for the quantum theory program. You'll notice it's a black cat hiding. Okay, so there are a few people in the audience that are still not terrified enough, and there are a few people that, as part of their process for coping with this horrible world that we have found ourselves in, they will say the following: there's no way they'll ever find me, I'm not interesting. So I just want to dispel that notion and show you a little bit about how they do that. So we mentioned turmoil, which is the dragnet surveillance, and turbine, which is deep packet injection, and Q-fire, where we tie it all together. And this is an example of something which I think actually demonstrates a crime, but I'm not sure. I'm not a lawyer. I'm definitely not your lawyer. I'm certainly not the NSA's lawyer. But this is the Marina system. This is merely one of many systems where they actually have full content as well as metadata taken together. They do contact chaining, where they find out you guys are all in the same room as me, which reminds me, let's see, I got this phone. Okay, that's good. Let's turn that on. So now, you're welcome. You have no idea. But I just wanted to make sure that if there was any question about whether or not you were exempt from needing to do something about this, that is dispelled. Okay. Cell phone's on? Great. So, hey guys. So, the Marina system is a contact chaining system as well as a system that has data. And in this case, what we see is, in fact, reverse contacts and forward contact graphing. So, any lawyers in the audience? If there are American citizens in this database, is reverse targeting like this illegal? Generally? Is it possible that that could be considered illegal? Yeah, so interesting. If it's called reverse contacts instead of reverse targeting, yeah, exactly. So you'll also notice on the right-hand side, webcam photos. So just in case you're wondering, in this case, this particular target, I suppose that he did not or she did not have a webcam. Good for them. If not, you should follow the EFF's advice and you should put a little sticker over your webcam. But you also note that they tried to find equivalent identifiers. So every time there's a linkable identifier that you have on the internet, they tried to put that and tie it together and contact chain it. And they tried to show who you are among all of these different potential identifiers. So if you have 5 email addresses, they would link them together. And then they try to find out who all your friends are. You also note at the bottom here, logins and passwords. So they're also doing dragnet surveillance in which they extract the feature set extraction where they know semantically what a login and a password is in a particular protocol. And in this case, this guy is lucky, I suppose, and they were not able to get passwords or webcam. But you'll note that they were able to get his contacts, and they were able to see, in fact, 29, give or take, received messages as well, of which there are these things. Now, in this case, we've redacted the email and instant messenger information, but this is an example of how you can't hide from these things, and thinking that they won't find you is a fallacy. So this is basically the difference between taking one wire and clipping onto it in a particularized suspicious way, where they're really interested. They have a particularized suspicion. They think that someone is a criminal. They think someone has taken some serious steps that are illegal. And instead what they do is they put all of us under surveillance, record all of this data that they possibly can, and then they go looking through it. Now, in the case of Chancellor Merkel, when we revealed NSRL 2002-388, what we showed was that they were spying on Merkel, and by their own admission, 3 hops away, that's everyone in the German parliament and everyone here.
The one single thing that makes me optimistic rather than cynical, pessimistic, is my students. First, I do not see the desire to go to Wall Street amongst them. I see the opposite. Second, I see a disdain amongst them for people who are motivated. Not just they don't want money, I see a disdain amongst them for people who do just want money.
The crises we face today are created by humans. And what is created by humans can be changed by humans. So we are all capable of transforming our world.
Revolutions are philosophical. Getting organized and preventing the culprits camouflaging the real problem means it's possible to embark on a bloodless revolution against the violent organizations and barbaric leaders who've trashed the economy. Central banking, rigged capitalism, land speculation, income tax and neoclassical economics have corporatized democracy, stunted progress, perverted the course of human destiny and compromised the future of this planet. If these issues aren't addressed, then the next implosion will be on a scale unimagined. Whatever the propaganda, at the beginning of the 21st century, central banks' unregulated cheap money pumped up land values, which created an unsustainable asset bubble in a world that once again operates a rigged tax system that enriches entrenched privilege. Neoclassical economics have ruined life for the bottom billions, tempted everyone into intergenerational conflict, and created massive suffering that has no limits. Human beings go mad in crowds and come to their senses slowly and individually. History is littered with examples of people who threw themselves off the yoke of oppression to adopt radical change, only to end up with popular new rulers that maintain the status quo. To really understand something is to be liberated from it. Dedicating oneself to a great cause, taking responsibility, and gaining self-knowledge is the essence of being human. A predatory capitalist's truest enemy and humanity's greatest ally is the self-educated individual who has read, understood, delays their gratification, and walks around with their eyes wide open.